I paid for a romantic week-long vacation, thinking it would save our struggling relationship. But on the second day I found texts showing she was cheating with two different men, both of whom were staying at the same resort. Instead of confronting her immediately, I set a trap that exposed everything in front of the entire hotel staff and left her speechless. The phone buzzed on the nightstand and I caught the glow of her screen lighting up the dark room. She turned quickly, shielding it from me, pretending to be asleep. That was the first moment I realized something was off. We were supposed to be on a romantic getaway, a week-long vacation I had paid for with every extra shift I could manage. Yet even in paradise she seemed somewhere else. Her mind, her attention, her heart. Booking that trip hadn't been easy. I had worked double shifts, skipped nights out with friends, and cut back on everything just to afford it. I told myself it would be worth it. Maybe if we had time away from the stress of bills and arguments, we could find our way back to each other. I imagined us laughing over breakfast, walking hand in hand along the beach, rediscovering the spark that had faded. That hope carried me through the exhaustion of saving for it. When we arrived at the resort, the staff greeted us with warm smiles, handing us cool drinks as the ocean breeze swept through the lobby. The place looked like something out of a postcard. White sand stretching endlessly, palm trees swaying, the sound of waves crashing softly in the distance. I felt a surge of relief. This was it. This was where we would fix everything. The first day seemed promising. I planned a candlelit dinner by the water, complete with music and fresh seafood. She smiled, but it was faint, distracted. Her eyes kept darting to her phone, her fingers tapping quickly under the table. I tried to ignore it, telling myself she was just checking in with work or family. But deep down I felt the distance. Small cracks began to show. At breakfast the next morning, she excused herself to take a call, leaving me alone at the table. When she returned, her smile was forced, her answers vague. Later, while we walked along the shore, she lagged behind, typing furiously on her phone. I asked if everything was okay. Just messages, she said, brushing it off. I tried not to let it ruin the trip. I booked us a couple's massage, arranged a private excursion to a nearby island, even surprised her with a small gift from the resort shop. Each gesture was met with polite gratitude, but not the warmth I had hoped for. It was as if she was physically present but emotionally absent. That night I sat on the balcony staring at the waves. I told myself relationships take effort, that maybe she just needed time to relax. I thought about the sacrifices I had made to bring us here, the long hours, the exhaustion, the hope that this week would change everything. I wasn't ready to give up. But the turning point came on the second day. She left her phone on the bed while she showered. I wasn't looking for trouble, but when the screen lit up, the preview of a message caught my eye. My chest tightened. Against my better judgment, I opened it. What I saw made my stomach drop. Texts from not one but two different men. Both of them were staying at the same resort. The messages weren't vague. They were explicit, filled with plans to meet, jokes about me, and promises of fun while I was away. My hands shook as I scrolled, each line confirming the betrayal I had feared but never imagined would be this blatant. I sat frozen, the sound of the shower running in the background. My mind raced. Two men. Both here. Both waiting for her. The vacation I had sacrificed so much for had become the stage for her deception. When she stepped out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, I forced myself to stay calm. I didn't confront her, not yet. She smiled faintly, asking if I wanted to head down to dinner. I nodded, my voice steady, though inside I was boiling. That night I barely tasted the food. I watched her laugh at nothing, her phone buzzing under the table, her eyes lighting up in ways they hadn't for me in months. Every detail of the texts replayed in my mind. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was deliberate, calculated, and happening right under my nose. I excused myself early, claiming I was tired. Back in the room, I sat in silence, staring at her phone, at the evidence that had shattered everything I thought we were. My heart ached, but my mind sharpened. I knew I couldn't let this slide. Not here. Not now. The vacation that was supposed to save us had revealed the truth instead. And though I hadn't confronted her yet, I knew the next steps would change everything. I sat in that dimly lit hotel room, her phone still glowing on the bed, my pulse racing. The texts I had read were burned into my mind, each word a dagger. Two men. Both here. Both waiting for her. My anger boiled, but I forced myself to stay calm. Confronting her immediately would only give her room to twist the truth, to deny, to play innocent. No, I needed her lies to collapse in front of everyone. That night I barely slept. I lay awake, listening to her steady breathing beside me, wondering how she could rest so easily while betraying me so openly. My mind churned with possibilities. I thought about storming into the lobby shouting the truth, but that would make me look desperate. I thought about leaving quietly, but that would let her win. No, I decided I would set a trap. The next morning I watched her carefully. She claimed she was going to the spa, but her bag was packed differently. Lipstick, perfume, a dress she hadn't worn for me in months. I nodded, pretending not to notice. "Enjoy yourself," I said, my voice steady. She smiled faintly, already halfway out the door. I followed at a distance, careful not to be seen. The resort was sprawling, with winding paths and shaded corners. I saw her pause near the poolside bar, checking her phone, then walking briskly toward one of the private cabanas. My chest tightened. I didn't need to see more, I already knew. But I wanted witnesses. That afternoon I spoke quietly with the hotel manager. He was a kind man, mid-40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I need your help," I said, lowering my voice. "There's something happening here that you should see." He looked at me curiously, and I explained just enough, without revealing the texts, that my partner was meeting other guests under false pretenses. His expression hardened. "We don't tolerate that kind of behavior here," he said. "Tell me what you need." Together we devised a plan. The staff would be nearby, discreet but present when she met them again. I wanted her caught in the act, with no room for denial. The manager agreed, arranging for a few trusted employees to linger near the cabanas and the lounge. That evening I invited her to dinner. She hesitated, claiming she was tired, but eventually agreed. Halfway through the meal her phone buzzed. She excused herself, saying she needed to make a quick call. I nodded, hiding my fury. As she walked away I signaled to the manager. The staff moved quietly into position. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding. She walked straight to the cabana, her steps quick, her smile unmistakable. 2 men were already there, drinks in hand, waiting. She greeted them warmly, her voice light, her laughter ringing out. The staff froze, watching. The manager stood nearby, arms crossed. I stepped forward, my voice steady but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Enjoying your vacation?" She spun around, her face draining of color. I was just what?" I asked, my eyes locked on hers. "Meeting both of them? While I sit alone, thinking we're here to fix us." The men shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other. One muttered, "We didn't know," but his voice trailed off under the weight of the silence. Her lips parted, searching for words, but nothing came. The staff whispered among themselves, their eyes wide. The manager stepped closer, his tone firm. "This is unacceptable behavior in our establishment." She tried to speak, her voice trembling. "You're imagining things. They're just friends." I held up her phone, the screen glowing with the messages I had saved. "Friends don't send texts like these. Friends don't plan secret meetings while I'm paying for this trip." Her face turned pale, her hands shaking. The men backed away, muttering excuses, leaving her standing alone. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. The staff exchanged glances, their whispers carrying across the cabana. Guests nearby paused, sensing the tension. She stood frozen, speechless for the first time since I had known her. I felt a strange calm wash over me. The anger was still there, but it was tempered by satisfaction. She couldn't deny it now. Not with the staff watching, not with the evidence in my hand, not with the men retreating in shame. Her eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but there was none. The truth had been laid bare and everyone had seen it. I turned to the manager, my voice steady. "Thank you for helping me." He nodded, his expression firm. "We stand by our guests who value honesty. You did the right thing." She tried one last time, her voice breaking. "You didn't have to do this in front of everyone." I met her gaze, unflinching. "You didn't have to betray me in front of everyone." The words hung in the air, final and undeniable. As I walked away, the whispers followed. The staff shook their heads, the guests murmured, and she stood alone, her world collapsing in front of her. For the first time she had no defense, no excuses, no lies to hide behind. And I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. The cabana had gone silent after my words, and though I walked away, The weight of that moment lingered in every corner of the resort. By the next morning, the fallout was already visible. At breakfast, I noticed how the atmosphere shifted around her. Guests who had once smiled politely now turned their heads, whispering behind menus. A family at the next table leaned closer together, their voices hushed but their eyes fixed on her. Even the staff who had greeted us warmly on the first day, now offered only stiff nods, their kindness replaced with quiet disapproval. Her reputation had shattered overnight. The betrayal wasn't just mine anymore. It had become a spectacle, something everyone had seen unfold. And she couldn't escape it. I watched her confidence collapse piece by piece. She tried to defend herself, clinging to excuses that sounded weaker each time. It was a misunderstanding, she told one guest who dared to ask. He's exaggerating, she muttered to another. But no one believed her. The evidence had been too clear, the witnesses too many. Even the men she had been meeting distanced themselves. I saw one of them at the pool later, shaking his head as he told a friend, "We didn't know she was playing both sides." His words carried across the water and she heard them too. Her shoulders slumped, her face turned away. By the third day she barely left the room. When she did, her steps were hurried, her eyes downcast. The woman who had once carried herself with pride now avoided eye contact, shrinking into corners of the resort where she thought no one would notice her. But the whispers followed everywhere. Then came the moment I hadn't expected. Her family reached out. It was late one evening when my phone buzzed. Her mother's voice was sharp, defensive. "You embarrassed her," she said. "You didn't have to make it public." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "She embarrassed herself," I replied. "I didn't write those messages. I didn't arrange those meetings. She did." Her mother hesitated, then tried again. She was confused. "You've been working too much." She felt neglected. The words stung, but I didn't let them sway me. "Neglect doesn't justify betrayal," I said firmly. "And confusion doesn't explain two men waiting at the same resort." Days later her father called. His tone was softer, almost pleading. "We thought you were exaggerating," he admitted. "We didn't want to believe she could do something like this. But the evidence, it's undeniable." Their defense crumbled under the weight of truth. They had tried to justify her actions, but every attempt collapsed when faced with the reality of what she had done. Meanwhile, my own perspective shifted. For weeks, I had carried the burden of suspicion, the pain of betrayal, the humiliation of silence. But standing up for myself, refusing to be humiliated quietly, had changed me. I realized I didn't need to hide my pain or protect her lies. I had faced the truth head-on, and in doing so, I had found strength I didn't know I had. One evening, I sat alone on the balcony, watching the sun sink into the ocean. The waves crashed steadily, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink. I thought about everything that had happened, the sacrifices I had made for the trip, the hope I had carried, the betrayal I had uncovered, the trap I had set, and the exposure that had followed. The scars were real. Betrayal leaves marks that don't fade easily. But as I sat there, I realized those scars were also proof of resilience. Proof that I had endured, that I had refused to be silenced, that I had chosen truth over humiliation. The lesson was clear. Lies can hide for a while, but truth always rises. And when it does, it leaves no room for excuses, no shelter for the guilty. Silence only protects those who deceive, but speaking out, no matter how painful, protects the one who has been wronged. As the night settled over the resort, I felt lighter. The whispers had shifted from pity to respect. Guests who had once avoided me now nodded in quiet acknowledgement. The staff treated me with kindness, their eyes reflecting understanding. And she, once so confident, so sure of herself, was left speechless, her world collapsing in ways she had never imagined. I closed my eyes, letting the sound of the waves wash over me. Betrayal had scarred me, yes. But it had also revealed resilience I didn't know I had. And that resilience was mine to carry forward. Long after the resort, long after the whispers faded, long after her excuses were forgotten. The truth had risen and it had set me free.